Welcome back to Broken Linux. Tonight we're on Edge 01, a Rocky Linux 9 box, and it's serving up a 502 to bad gateway. But here's the twist. Both Nginx and the upstream API report active. Nothing is crashed, nothing is down, and yet the request never completes. So the fault isn't in what's running. It's in something quietly sitting between them. Let's set the stage. Edge 01 was built fresh this morning from our standard image. Nginx sitting in front of a small internal API on port 880, every config file written by hand and reviewed. And here's a detail worth stating plainly. This is Rocky, not Ubuntu. The rest of the season runs on Ubuntu, and this exact failure simply doesn't happen on a stock Ubuntu box. Production is never one uniform distribution, and pretending otherwise is how you miss bugs like the one we're about to hit. So pause here for a moment and actually answer this out loud. Nginx is up, the upstream is up. Both configs were written and reviewed by hand, and yet every single request comes back 502. What is the very first command you type? Don't reach for the config file yet. Think about what you actually need to confirm before you touch anything. Here's what I actually tried first, and honestly, none of it helped. I restarted Nginx, still 502, no new information. I checked the upstream. Port 8080 was listening, and curl to localhost got a clean response. I inspected the firewall. Loopback wasn't filtered. I ran nginx and grept for proxy pass, syntax valid, address correct, 4 hypotheses, 4 dead ends. And the whole time, the file that would have told me exactly what was happening was sitting right there untouched. That file is the Nginx error log, and the moment you open it, one number changes everything. Most 502 guides online chase error 111. Econ refused, nothing listening on the port. But this log says 13, EHZCS, permission denied. That's a completely different story. Something is listening. Nginx did reach out, and something in the middle refused to let the connection through. So the question becomes, who denies a loopback connection when the firewall isn't filtering it and the socket is wide open? The answer lives 3 commands away. Getenforce confirms Linux is in enforcing mode, so policy is actively making decisions. Then search pulls the recent AVC denials, and there it is, Nginx, running in the HTTPDT domain, was denied name. Connect to an HTTP cache object port. Run it through audit Y, and it even tells you the fix already exists. A Boolean called HTTPD can network connect. So this isn't a firewall problem. It isn't a socket problem. So it's Linux policy denying Nginx the right to open an outbound TCP connection. So now you have 3 options. The first sets a bool. PHTPD gonna network connect on, flips the Boolean persistently, immediate, no reload, and it survives reboots. The second is tighter. Use Symonage to label port 3000 as an HTTP port by T, granting Nginx exactly that one destination instead of the whole outbound internet. The third, setEnforce 0, is the one you see suggested everywhere online, and it's wrong. It disables the very system that just correctly stopped an unauthorized connection. The policy wasn't broken. Your machine simply hadn't been told this box is a reverse proxy. And that's what makes this failure genuinely uncomfortable. There's no misconfigured file to point at. The default is deliberate. HTTPD isn't allowed outbound connections because a compromised web server shouldn't be able to phone home. Swap the port for a Unix socket and you'll hit Erno 13 again, but the Boolean won't save you. That's a file context problem, not a network one. And Ubuntu isn't smarter here. Appermore just confines by path with a looser shipped profile. Every file on this box was correct. The default policy and the intended use simply disagreed. Next week, episode 8. The machine drops into emergency mode, but FSCK says the root disk is clean. So, what's actually holding boot hostage? We'll trace it through journal CRTL, fstab, and systems mount units. Same mindset, different layer of the stack. If this episode helped, subscribe over at youtube.com/@Dargslan. and I'll see you at the next broken shell.